Story time about why you should never, ever, ever do drugs. So a little background information. In my town, on the 15th of June this year, 2 girls got kidnapped in my hometown. So I kind of knew these 2 girls. I mean, they went to my school, but that was really it. Because low-key, I didn't want to be friends with them, and I kind of hated them. They were in 7th grade, I was in 8th grade, so they were probably like a year younger than me. Anyway, so it was a Wednesday, and the last time they had been seen was at 8 p.m. with a 30-year-old man. They were supposedly doing drugs outside of a McDonald's. Well, I guess this man saw that they had been doing drugs, and he wanted some. Before that, I guess he kind of eased into the question because he was like talking to them, getting to know them, and I guess he thought he had a really good shot at getting some drugs. But when he asked, they said no. So then he asked a few more times and they finally gave them to him, but whenever they got closer, he grabbed both of them, put him in his van, and drove off. And he hid them in his house. Like for part 2. Part 2 of why you should never, ever, ever do drugs. So like I said, he asked for them again, and finally the girls decided to give him some. But when they got closer, he grabbed both of them and shoved them in his van, drove off. Well, he ended up driving to his house and decided to hide them there. Well, one of the girls' aunts posted something on Facebook saying that both of them were missing, and soon the news made an article that literally said, "Drug addict and her friend gets kidnapped." They went missing for like 6 days, and on the 22nd of June, they were found, but now they won't stop bragging about how fun it was to get kidnapped. And that is why, still to this day, I absolutely despise these girls. Storytime about how my best friend started seeing my mom. So we're gonna call my best friend Joey. Joey and I had been best friends since we were 4 years old, and my family was really close with his, and vice versa. And she had always been really nice to him, of course, because he was a family friend and he was my best friend. Well, one day I thought that she liked him a little bit more than she liked me. She would always ask the weirdest questions. Like, oh, is Joey single? Or what's Joey's sexuality? Like, sis had a whole ass husband. But at the time I didn't think anything of it because I just thought that she really wanted him and I to date. But when he turned 15, things started getting a little bit weirder. Like sometimes he would go over my house right after school, even when I wasn't there, to hang out with my mother. And usually the only time he was at the house was whenever him and I were hanging out. Well, the one day I walked in and they were both sitting on the couch talking. And when they both saw me, they acted like nothing was wrong with it, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend started seeing my mom. So like I said, the one day I come home after school and they're both sitting on the couch already talking. And they look at me and say hi as if nothing was wrong with the situation. And then after that, Joey started mentioning how my mom was so hot. And I was like, yeah, no, she's pretty, but that's it. Well, the one day my mom left for work earlier than she usually does. So I messaged my dad and asked him if he wanted to hang out. So of course he said yes, and 5 hours later I came home and I go upstairs. And I'm just like hearing things from my mother's bedroom. So I go up and I open the door. And because I don't want this video to get taken down, you guys probably can guess what I saw. So I ran out of the room, ran downstairs. I start panicking. And Joey came and hugged me and said, "I'm sorry, me and your mom just love each other." So I told them both they were absolutely disgusting. So then my mom starts crying and begging me to forgive her. And now I live with my dad. Storytime of why it's never good to be in a best friend group of 3. So a little background information. I was in 4th grade and I was 9 years old, about to turn 10. Now I know you're thinking, that's really young. Well sis, I was just smart enough to see the red flags early on, unlike half of you who probably didn't see them. Anyway, so I had 2 friends we're going to call the one Becky and the one Mia. Now let me tell you a little bit about Becky. Becky was kind of a bitch. Now anytime that she saw Mia and I having our own conversation, she would pretty much bully us. And she would have 2 of her other friends tag along and do it also, Brooklyn and Riley. So the one day we're walking to PE and Mia and I are having a conversation. And in our gym class, you had to line up in groups of 3. So it would go Mia, Becky, and then me. Well, because I wanted to finish my conversation with Mia, I decided to sit in Becky's spot. So we're sitting down and then Becky marches over to where we're sitting and just stands there and stares at us. Then she walks away and goes and sits with her other friends. And at the end of gym class, she comes back over to us. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why it's never good to be in a best friend group of 3. So like I said, Brittany hated it whenever Mia and I would have our own conversation, and I sat in Becky's spot in gym class, and then she got mad at us because I wanted to finish my conversation with Mia. So she goes over with her other friends that literally bully Mia and I. So at the end of gym class, she walks up to both of us with Brooklyn, and she literally is just standing there. And then Brooklyn goes, "Do you need me to do it for you?" Me and I look at each other like, what the fuck is going on? And then Brittany's like, "No, I just wanted to tell you guys that I don't want to be friends with you anymore." She was like, "You guys are just so fake. Like, you never include me in anything." Which was completely not true, but we were like, whatever. So then the next day at school, Brittany comes up to Mia and I, and she's like, "Hey guys." Like, this bitch was bipolar as fuck. And we're like, "We thought you didn't want to be friends with us anymore." And she was like, "No, I just meant I didn't want to be best friends." Story time about the worst day of my life. So a little background information. I was 16 at the time, and I was either in 8th grade or 9th grade, but I really don't remember. And I had this boyfriend who we are going to call Cameron. We had been dating for 3 years, but before him and I got together, we were best friends. Well, I also was in a friend group with myself, Amber, and this girl named Sky. Now, I wouldn't really call Sky a pick-me girl. She was more of a jealous best friend. For example, the one day we went shopping for dresses, and I picked this one out that I really liked and that looked super good on me. Amber was like, "OMG, you look so beautiful." And then Sky, she was like, "That dress is ugly and it makes you look fat." Well, after that, I told her I didn't care what she said and that I was going to get the dress anyways. Well, she didn't like the fact that I wasn't going to listen to her, so she didn't talk to me for 2 whole weeks. And then after, she texted me saying that she forgives me, even though I didn't apologize, but okay. Well then, me being stupid, I introduced her to my boyfriend. Bad idea, like for part 2. Part 2 about the worst day of my life. So like I said, me being stupid, I introduced her to my boyfriend. Well, after that, Cameron started acting really weird. Like him and I, we would literally hang out with each other 24/7. And now he was always too busy for me and we would only talk at school. And because I was in all the smart classes and stuff, I would go over to his house to tutor him. Because, you know, I was like the one who was winning every single fucking award for being smart. Well, I came over on the day that I would usually tutor him. And when I went over there, his mom was like, "Oh, he's busy. He's out with his friends." So then I went home and I got bored and I opened Instagram. Well, I see that he's at a party with Sky and they didn't even invite me. So I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, it was her and her boyfriend's party." So I was like, that wasn't really an excuse for why you didn't invite me. So he apologized and I forgave him. Well, 5 weeks later, I found out that him and her did the nasty, and she got pregnant. And then there was a rumor going around that they made out in the bathroom. So I blocked both of them and never saw them again.
Am I the asshole for threatening to make my in-laws homeless if they cannot understand what working from home means? Disclaimer, this is not my story. I will list the source in the caption of this video. I, 38 female, am the primary breadwinner for my household. My husband, 42 male, is semi-retired due to an injury at work. He is a great husband and has taken over all of the housework that needs to be done during the day. We share all duties when I am not working. Recently, his sister, her husband, and their 2 teen kids lost their home. We have a rental suite in our basement that we use as a family area, so we agreed to let them live there. Because I'm paranoid, I had them sign a lease. A few days ago, my husband had an opportunity to do some consulting at his old work. He loves doing it because it gets him out of the house and he gets to see his old coworkers and friends. It was short notice, so we had an arranged babysitting. We asked his sister to watch our youngest for the day so he could go to work, and she agreed. She then delegated the task to her 13-year-old son. Then she had her nap. The kid didn't want to disturb his mom during her nap, so he banged on my door while I was working to change a diaper. Fair enough. If I were a 13-year-old boy, I might not feel comfortable changing a baby girl. I asked where his mom was, and he said that she was napping. I woke her up and I told her that she had agreed to watch her niece, so to do so. I waited for my husband to get home and we discussed his family. We decided together that they needed to start paying the amount on the lease, leave, or start helping around the house. We took all of the kids over to my mother-in-law's house. Then we sat them down and had a talk. We gave them their options. They said that we were assholes for tricking them into signing a lease and not collecting it so we could evict them. I said that wasn't the only choice. I said that she was the one who chose to lay off of a responsibility on a child. I said that I was basically the one supporting her, and if she couldn't help, then she had to give me the money or leave. Some further information. Neither her or her husband have jobs right now. They are buying groceries with his unemployment benefits. I set up the lease because of the horror stories I have heard about people claiming to be tenants. So, am I the asshole for threatening to make my in-laws homeless if they cannot understand what working from home means? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. My son's friend's parents want to adopt him. Disclaimer, this is not my story. I will list the source in the caption of this video. I, 24 female, am a single mom to my son Owen, 8. It's been just us since day one. His father isn't in the picture and has been able to avoid paying child support for years now. Yes, I've tried everything. My own parents disowned me. I had to drop out of high school and have worked a myriad of jobs since then to keep us afloat. We aren't on the poverty line by any means, but we definitely live paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not ideal, and I hope within the next couple of years we'll be in a bigger place. For now, it's our situation. I raised Owen to know that money isn't everything. We may not have a lot, he won't always have the newest this or that, but we have each other. The two of us are very close. He has never gone without the basics, but I admit he doesn't get a lot of extras. I try to save here and there to make birthdays and holidays fun, but it's still never anything glamorous. And I think Owen was fine with that, until recently anyway. In our area, all the public schools are based on a lottery system, so your child has a fair shot of going to any of them, so long as you put in their name. Our neighborhood school is not great and in a pretty crappy area, so I decided to put him in a different one across town. It's near my job, so it works out. Last year, when he was in 2nd grade, he met Charlie. They began hanging out a lot after school, with Owen going to his place. I met Charlie's parents, Nate and Paige, a couple of times before this began. They seemed very nice and supportive. Owen has always had a great time at their house. Charlie occasionally came to our apartment, but usually they were at his place, which made sense. I work a lot, and there's not really much for them to do when they're here, even when I am off. Part 2. My son's friend's parents want to adopt him. Disclaimer, this is not my story. I will list the source in the caption of this video. Summer breaks are easy to find care, as there are several free or low-cost camps that I can put Owen in. It's shorter breaks such as Christmas and spring break that are harder. Camp space is limited. Spring break of 22, I managed to just miss registration. Paige is a stay-at-home mom and offered to take Owen for the week. I was hesitant to ask so much of her, but she insisted. He had a really fun time with them. They did a ton of activities, and Paige refused my attempts to pay her back, at least some of it. I couldn't afford all. I admit, I did feel a tad uncomfortable with her spending so much on him, but at the same time, I didn't want to deprive Owen of this stuff. Summer came, and while I did get Owen into a camp, he spent a ton of time with Charlie as well. He ended up going on vacation with them. I again was very hesitant, but the experience was something I could never give Owen, and it wasn't too far away. He had a blast. I kept telling Nate and Paige that there was no way I could ever pay them back. They kept insisting that they loved having Owen around. They told me he's a great kid, sweet, respectful. At one point, I really pressed Paige to see why she was so insistent on always having Owen. That's when she told me they never planned for Charlie to be an only child, but all attempts at giving him a sibling just didn't happen. They know that Owen will never make up for not having a brother, but if they can give him a consistent playmate so he's not alone, they'll do it. Christmas break of 22, Paige and Nate insisted that I not even bother trying to get Owen into a camp, that they'd take care of him for me. I was grateful. They ended up getting him more Christmas gifts than I did. I tried to set my pride aside because it was about Owen, not about me. This is when things finally started seeming off. I understood a gift on his birthday, and while they didn't get him as many gifts as they got Charlie, it was more than you would typically get your kid's friend. Spring break was last week. This time, Paige and Nate didn't just offer to take care of him during the day while I worked. They asked if Owen could spend the entire week at their house. Honestly, it meant I could pick up some more shifts and save up for the bike that Owen wanted for his birthday, so I said yes. I went to pick him up Saturday afternoon. While the kids were playing out back, Nate and Paige asked if they could talk to me. They sat me down and they said that they loved having Owen so much and he was such a joy. I thanked them profusely for all they've done for him. Paige suggested that Owen stay a little longer. I pointed out Easter was Sunday, plus school started on Monday. They said that they could take him to school. I felt weird and said no, it was time for Owen to come home. That's when Nate suggested that Owen stay with them long term. I could still see him, but that they would take care of him. I thought that they were joking. They got quiet, and that's when reality rushed over me. I pointed out that this wasn't a movie. They can't just get custody. They started spouting some legal stuff about how I could assign them as guardians, and it would help make the transition smooth. They told me to think about Owen and what's best for him. I grabbed Owen and left. I've blocked their numbers. Legally, they can't take him, but they want him, and I'm terrified.